Welcome to the 2025 Dialogue, a masterclass series by the HR Association of India. I am Neha Jignani, and today we are diving into a topic that sits at the intersection of perception, purpose, and people. Employer Branding 2.0, the secret sauce to attract and retain talent. To help us decode this essential conversation, we have joined by someone who lives and breathes the future of work. He is Sahil Nayar, a dynamic HR leader who masterfully blends data with intuition, strategies with storytelling, and innovation with impact. Sahil is an author, a podcast host, and a certified happiness coach, and has been recognized over 50 times for his contribution to HR. Whether he's shaping talent strategies, mentoring future leaders, or riding through Mumbai on his Royal Enfield, he brings heart and purpose to everything he does. Join me in welcoming the HR Bites guy, Sahil Nayar. Sahil, thank you so much for joining. It's a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Neha. It's always a pleasure having a conversation with you.
Thank you so much. So, to begin with, Sahil, my first question to you is in a sea of buzzwords, how does a company define what really sets it apart for current and future talent?
I think that's a brilliant question, Neha, because if you come to think of it, right, drowning in a sea of buzzwords, I think companies today are drowning in jargon like growth mindset, agility, innovation. Everyone's using these same words in such a repetitive manner. But the truth is, if someone is actually doing something which personifies these words, then it stands out. Otherwise, everyone is saying the same thing and no one is standing out. I think very clearly we've looked at EVP change over the years, the employee value proposition. At times, also the employer value proposition makes a significant impact. And to my mind, there are four truths that have a very fundamental bearing on how you can stand out in the ocean, in the sea, in the pond, in the lake, whichever water body you are in, irrespective of your size or maturity as an organization. The first truth is the cultural truth. What is it that employees are saying at water cooler conversations? What is it that employees are saying when they go down to have their chai sutta break at the local pan tapri? And what is it that employees are saying when no one's watching? The cultural truth. The second is the aspirational truth. I think fundamentally, what does the leadership want the culture of the organization to be known for? Today, when we look at the Tata Group, trust is so synonymous that irrespective of hundreds and thousands and lakhs of employees that may have joined various sister concerns, the Tata Group to us stands for trust. And that's the aspirational truth that the organization tries at all levels, across all employee sets, across all group companies to really create. The third truth, to my mind, is the talent truth. What does top talent actually seek? Today we always say that, hey, you know what? Someone's for money, someone's for a great role, someone's for purpose, someone's for autonomy. Today's Gen Z is looking at purpose and ESG and sustainability. But what is the talent truth of your organization? And finally, number four, in this sea, if you don't want to get lost and you actually want to be not just a North Star, but also be a beacon. The beacon needs to look at the competitive truth. And the competitive truth is about what are your peers doing and how can you zig when they are zagging. And I think that fundamentally, and these four truths coming together, will actually help demystify the jargon and in the sea of buzzwords, help any organization, any enterprise define how it can set itself apart from others.
Beautifully put, Sahil. So, to sum it up, there is cultural truth, aspirational truth, talent truth, and competitive truth. To sum it up, we can say that real differentiation really comes with lived experiences and not just taglines. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And Neha, I'll just add over here, right? I was reading the other day, a logistics company in India actually found its superpower not in speed, not in technology, not in safety of its trucking company, but actually in the fact that it spent a lot of time, effort, energy, and resources in upskilling the truck driver families in digital literacy. Now, come to think of this, right? Today, when you look at a trucking company and with the way Viksit Bharat is playing out and we are developing infrastructure, roads, highways, everybody's going to say, how can I get my goods faster? How can I get it at a better speed? How can I get it safely without dacoits, without it getting robbed? And more importantly, can I have technology that's going to track where the truck is right now? Now, all of that is a given. But the truckers that work for this logistics company, fantastically, the organization has invested in the digital literacy of the truckers' families. Now, can you think of this? This is actually going back to my narrative of saying cultural truth, aspirational truth, talent truth, and comparative truth.
Beautiful example, Sahil. Thank you so much. So my next question, Sahil, is you're a natural storyteller, and I want to know how can leaders use storytelling to not just attract talent, but to emotionally engage talent?
Sure. I think to my mind, Neha, facts tell, but stories sell. And more importantly, emotions stay, right? I can show you a great Excel sheet with a lot of numbers, a fantastic PowerPoint slide, and maybe you'll remember it till the end of the day. But in a board meeting, if you actually say a story, that story stays with people and the narrative stays with people because the emotions that are embedded in that story stay with people. And I think great employer branding is not about what it is to work here or work in this organization or that organization. I think great employer branding is about what it means to belong here. And I think in today's competitive world where talent is so scarce, belongingness is the aspect, to my mind, in my personal capacity, that we should all chase. And I want to share with all your viewers a model. And this model is called Start with the Heart. START. S is for situation, T is for tension, A is for action, R is for result, and again, T is for takeaway, right? Situation. What's the real relatable backdrop? In what context, in what situation are things really playing out? What's the tension in terms of what's the challenge that we are trying to solve for? Because many a times when people don't understand the challenge, they're just doing it because they want to jump onto the bandwagon or because it's a fancy thing to do or it's a fad, right? The action cannot be that, oh, just because they did it, we need to do something similar. So what is so unique about you that creates belongingness among the 100 people that are part of your organization or the 10,000 people or the 10 lakh people? What is it so unique that creates belongingness? It's very important to measure results, to really understand what has changed. Because if something is not changing, then this is just another project, another engagement, another fancy, outreach that you're trying to do. And finally, the T in start, when you start with the heart, is about the takeaway. And the question that we need to really ask ourselves is, why should someone care? Because I may do all of this, but people have hundreds and thousands other things to do. And therefore, if we're driving this agenda, why should someone care? And I'll give you a classic example that I was talking to a friend of mine just last week. And he said, you know what, in our organization, we actually support a lot of working mothers. And they were driving this campaign for the last 6 months that, whether it's someone coming back from maternity or someone taking a break or anything else, there is a campaign to support working mothers. And recently, they have actually gone out in all their platforms within their organization to go about telling the story of Asha. And the story of Asha is about a lady who returned from maternity leave and actually redesigned the company's breastfeeding policy. Not only did she redesign it, but she was instrumental in working very closely with HR and the management to get it approved and passed. And now, when they're taking this entire policy to the entire organization, it is Asha who's talking about it to say, hey, you know what? I went on maternity leave. These were some of the challenges that I faced. And now, when I'm coming back to work, these were some of the ideas I had. And I worked with HR and the management. And hey, all working mothers or everybody else who's coming back from maternity, this is our refreshed policy. Now, come to think of it, Neha, when I heard this from a friend of mine, it actually won my heart. And not just my heart, when they are going out now outside of their organization to talk about this to their prospective candidates, it is also winning them hires. So come to think of it, you have heart winning on one end and you have hires. You're actually able to convert candidates into employees because they can feel the policy. They feel they belong. They feel that if they join this organization, well-being will not be a word that will be put up on the wall, but well-being will be practiced.
Fantastic. It's a beautiful example, Sahil. It shows how one step that you take with courage, with dedication, can actually pave the way for so many people, how it has impacted the employer, the peer colleagues. It's very beautiful, put and touching. I also like the START theory. It's very thought-provoking and gives you some actionable insights, some practical insights to follow that. And to sum it up, I would say great stories are, will not just attract talent, they'll make them feel that they belong. So
Absolutely.
thank you so much for that.
Very well summarized, Neha.
Thank you. Thank you. So Sahil, you're a certified happiness coach. So I want to know, how does happiness at work ties with employer branding today?
I think there's a lot of research around this. Gartner has done phenomenal amount of research where they say that employees who experience high psychological safety are 12x more likely to recommend their employer because they want not just themselves to be beneficiaries, but they want their friends, their family, their immediate natural environment to really come in. I think gone are the days when happy employees would just be happy and they would stay longer in an organization because they're happy. Today, the happiest of employees don't just stay longer, they also speak louder. We are living in a world where everything is about social media, and happiness is no longer a perk, it is actually a promise. So today, beyond meaningful work, people are looking for the fact that if I'm going to spend 8, 10, 12, 14, or even 70 hours or 90 hours, the way that buzzword is going around, and dedicating so much time of my life at work, and if that part of my life is not called happiness, then what is happiness? Because it doesn't make sense working Monday to Friday, trying to earn money just to pay an EMI that bought you a house that made you happy just for a couple of days. It doesn't make sense burning the midnight oil night after night after night with zero appreciation at work, only to get that extra bonus that bought you your favorite sports car. Because driving on a highway at 0 to 100 in 6 seconds on a Saturday night is so short-lived as compared to spending the remaining 5 days trying to earn the money to pay the car loan. And therefore, I think care is very important. And when it comes to happiness, synonymously, the word care or the model care comes to my mind. C stands for connection, A for autonomy, R for recognition, and E for empathy. Very, very simple. Connection. Are you really fostering human moments where you are connecting with people as people and not just as rows in an Excel sheet? Do you even know the person behind the person who's coming to work? And that's the connection that people are really looking out for, saying, hey, you know what? I come to work, I put on this smile, but actually back home, I'm dealing with a huge exigency. And is there that connect? While business will go on, work will go on, but do you even connect with me beyond the professional level? A, for autonomy, do you really see people as who they are and what they own? I think many a times we really hire people who are brilliant, talented people, and then we tell them in this organization it works like this. And that's the moment you've taken away the happiness from the person, because what they really want is autonomy. Let people own what they do. And when they have a sense of ownership, they will commit themselves to outcomes. Many a times I've seen that recognition falls through the cracks. You don't need to wait for that one big, massive deal for a couple of crores to celebrate. You don't need to wait for that one annual appraisal or that one promotion to celebrate. It is important that we give small, small doses of recognition by celebrating small wins. And that's recognition for you. And the last, to my mind, in the care model, empathy is so very important, because as we may have leadership and we may have managers, it is important for managers to listen more than they lead. And I've seen this personally in my own career playing out for myself. When I moved from an individual contributor to a manager to a leader, I think listening becomes one of the most important skills, because you've led from the front for long enough. Now I think it's important to also lead from behind. And when you lead from behind, two things happen very beautifully. One, people know that this person has my back. So when you're leading from behind, if something happens to this person, they turn and they say, oh, Sahil is there. I can fall back. Sahil will have my back. And the second is when they're leading from the front, your team is leading from the front, the spotlight is always on them. And when they like the spotlight, when they enjoy the spotlight, they thrive, right? And I think this is something, to my mind, which allows happiness at work to tie into the entire narrative or employer branding, which then becomes very authentic, very genuine, and not something that is just put on because it's a good thing to do for the organization.
Fantastic, Sahil. Wonderfully put. I really like the care concept. And also two things that I'll take away very specifically, which was really fresh to me when you said that happiness isn't just a perk, it's a brand promise. And lastly, you said leading from behind. It's a very fresh perspective in order to create that ecosystem where people are feeling, they are valued and also they are recognized for whatever they do. So thank you so much for that. My next question, Sahil, is with the rise of social media these days, employer can be a brand ambassador or a brand detractor also. So how do you channelize these energies effectively?
I think that, Neha, that's a very nice point, because, as I come to think of it, I'm also thinking of instances where I have seen people play out as both, right? The same person could be a brand ambassador, and the same person can also become a brand detractor. And needless to say, you can have different people playing different roles as well, depending on what their association with the organization and how things are playing. I think to come to think of it, one thing that you cannot script is authenticity. And I have seen this with very, very senior leaders leading large organizations. When they look at the teleprompter and they actually look at the teleprompter like that, and you're watching the video, you can easily make out that this person has a huge, massive LED screen a couple of feet away, and the person's just reading out from the teleprompter. And you can also make out when someone is having a script, a piece of paper in front of them, at times referring to the paper and at times trying to speak verbatim. And when someone speaks from the heart, when someone speaks a story they have lived, and when someone speaks experiences, that they have shared with other colleagues or with friends or with family. It just comes from the heart. And therefore, I want to share with you a three-pronged approach that works very beautifully. And these are the three E's. And I know, last time we had a great conversation. This time you want a little bit of models and frameworks. So I've come up with these three E's. The first one is enable, the second is empower, and the third is encourage. Are we really enabling our ecosystem to share what they want to share? Now, come to think of this, right? Everybody has access to Canva and so many other tools. Imagine if I could just log into my system and there was a designed template where Sahil could just go and share what he wanted to share without saying, hey, be careful of what you put because this is allowed, this is not allowed. You can voice this feeling, but you can't voice this feeling, right? Of course, individuals are mature, they're adults. So are you enabling them with plug and play templates that allow them to share how they feel? And many organizations do a great job of this when they have appreciation weeks or gratitude month, and they actually do that, right? But can you really leverage it not just within the organization, but outside? Second is, are you empowering people? Where not everybody may be very vocal. Not everybody may have the gift of the gab. Not everybody may be fantastic with English. But are you empowering them with people who can coach them? Are you empowering them with tools that say, आप Tamil में बहुत अच्छा बात करते हैं, Tamil में लिखो, we will translate it for you and we will tell you what it means and you do a check, right? So that at least the emotion comes out. Because when I talk in my mother language, my emotion comes out. And you're empowering people with tools, with mentors, with skill sets, with training programs that allow them to become voice labs. Yeah. Where you create a lab where people can voice what they feel. And lastly, it's also about encouraging. We see so many top voices, right? LinkedIn has done a fantastic program on top voice. How many organizations have a top voice program where it could be just a simple analyst who has 5 lakh followers and people are saying, hey, you know what? This person's an analyst, does data entry for so-and-so process in our organization, but is a top voice. And then you provide recognition to something like this. And when you do that, you will realize that even though people may have had not so great experiences or good experiences, brand detractors get converted to brand ambassadors.
Sure. That's beautifully put, Sahil. I like the three E's. I think if you empower employees with the three E's, which is enable, empower, and engage, they will eventually amplify your brand authentically out there. So this is a great point, Sahil. Thank you so much. This brings us to the last question, Sahil, which is, what's one unconventional thing that you have seen employers do that made you feel now that's an employer branding done right?
Sure. So Neha, this actually gets me to think that, I've seen many organizations when they attract early talent, they spend a lot of effort on employer branding, right? Whether it is in terms of joining kids with a fancy mug or a diary or a pen or a gift, and then they get their new hires to upload this on LinkedIn and do a lot of employer branding, right? But I know one such organization that actually has a culture review kit, right? So no fancy backpack, no laptop bag, nothing. It's called a culture review kit. Even before people join, they have a kit that has 3 or 4 very unique items. The first one is actually a note from the CEO's daughter. Now, you can imagine a standard kit will have a note from the head of the department, head of HR, or head of the CEO. But this is a spoof, which is a note from the CEO's daughter to say how she looks at her father being the CEO of this company. And it's such a beautiful note which says that, hey, you know what? Papa comes late from work, but then the next day also, if I tell him that drop me to school, he drops me to school. It's a very, very nice, cute note that talks about how the family looks at the employee working in that organization. The second thing, they actually have Spotify playlists that are heard in different teams. So if you're joining a certain team and they have a certain ritual or a certain way of cutting birthday cakes together or partying at a certain place, they have pictures of that team where they party when they have a win, or their go-to adda, or their go-to place on a Friday night. And the team pictures are there. And the third thing they do very beautifully is they create memes of internal conversations on teams or whatever. Or there's a project team that's come together and there has been a little bit of banter. There's a meme created out of it. And they call this entire campaign Taste Before You Toast. And I just found it so wonderful, right? Now, imagine everything is done right. Great recruiter, great recruiting experience. You got a good offer. You're happy with the offer. You're looking forward to joining the organization. The organization is looking forward to welcoming you, blah, 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 blah. Done, dusted. But this culture preview kit, to my mind, is so refreshing. It is so refreshing because it is so real. It is so real because the CEO's daughter is actually telling you how she feels when she sees Papa going to work or burning the midnight oil or making time for her in spite of being the CEO of the organization. It feels so real because the same place next to office where people go and party, and you may have gone there without being an employee of this organization. You see pictures there with colleagues. And lastly, you also see memes of the fun at work, which is actually real. Of course, it gets approved in a certain manner so that it's above board, but it is so amazing. And then they actually tell you taste before you toast, which to my mind is such an amazing employer branding initiative, because it actually wasn't just a box with some gifts and a note from the CEO. It actually felt like belongingness was wrapped up in that box for me, right? And also, they are actually making small attempts to shift the narrative to say employer branding is no longer about being the best place to work. It's also about being the place to work where you belong, where you feel one with everyone. And I think that, to my mind, was a fantastic example of employer branding done right.
Thank you, Sahil, for sharing that example. It's very, very refreshing. It also reminds me, I was just scrolling through social media a couple of days ago, and I came across a quote that said that the boldest employer brands are not built on aesthetics. They are built
Yeah.
on authenticity. And your example truly resonates with me on that. So thank you so much. So this brings us to the end of this masterclass, Sahil. Thank you so much for your insightful perspectives and experiences on employer brand, emotional connection, and authentic storytelling. It's going to resonate with all our viewers, and I thank you on behalf of HRAI for bringing these perspectives.
Thank you, Ria. Thank you for having me over, and I wish you and the team at HIR all the very best. Thank you so
Thank you so
much.
much. Thank you. I'll just have a quick note to our listeners. Sahil, thank you for tuning into this masterclass. If you enjoyed today's conversation, do not forget to subscribe and leave a review. Until we meet next time, let's remember brands may attract, but it's the experiences that make people stay. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, Sahil.
Thank you.